It's the Jack Paar Show with Robert Merrill, Hackett, Alexander King, Jose Mellis and his orchestra, and yours truly, Hugh Dowd. And now, here's Jack.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Johnny Carson. We happen to be here on the last night of World War III. And we have a very wonderful show prepared for you while Jack leaves now. And Huey, I want to thank you so much for that very wonderful encyclopedia introduction. I think it's a very swell job. Jose, I didn't recognize you on the tractor. That's all. We have a lot of very wonderful celebrities in the audience tonight. We have Willie Sutton in the back of the house here. And Mickey Cohen is here with the Mormon choir. He'll be here a little later. And I have to go through the audience right now and sort of get around and meet the people because before Jack drowns in his own tears. Hello, are you with somebody? Oh, you're Mrs. Paul Keyes, aren't you? You write for this very wonderful manner, don't you? Would you mind saying a few funny things about Jack Paar? Oh, thank you very much. It's certainly good seeing you again, Mrs. Paul Revere. Certainly was nice seeing you. And who is this? You're the secretary to somebody, aren't you, darling? You better stop putting that great tint there in your hair. You look ridiculous. And this is the great Max Asness, ladies and gentlemen, of the very famous stage delicatessen. Max, your friend is going to the Far East now. Don't forget to go down to the Far East side, bring him a salami. He'll be very happy, Maxie. Say a few words in American.
In American.
Go ahead, Max. That's right. Don't get nervous, Max. Take the corned beef out of your mouth.
No. I'll tell you, one thing I could say that everybody else will miss him, and I'll miss him the most.
How about that, Maxie? I think that's very sweet of you, Max. I really mean it. You're a sweet man. Thank you. General Saroff, I'll get to you in a few moments if you don't mind, please. And we have Tom Poston here, who's been on a lot of hot flip shows. How are you? Say a few words, Tom, about our very good friend who is leaving tonight, and you're paying his fare.
Well, I just hope that Jack Paar has as much success on his hour show during the week as he's had on this show for the past 5 years.
I think that's simply wonderful for you to say that, and we all agree with you. Thank you, Tom. And it's always nice to see you again. I thank you. Well, for a bow back there. Miss, what is that you're wearing, may I ask? Look like you're wearing a lot of soup and greens on your hair. Are you going to make some soup when the show is on, dear? Well, we certainly welcome you. You certainly have a great sense of humor. Sam Levinson, didn't recognize you without the blackboard, Sam. Say a few words to your good friend down here, Sam. He's leaving tonight.
Wish him all the luck in the world.
I think that's very clever. You had 4 years of college to say that, didn't you, Sam, huh? I hope you get your own show soon, Sam, so you'll be leaving. You all know my very good friend, Selma Diamond? Go on, darling. Say a few words.
I think that Jack should be doing what he wants to do, and if he wants to go out of the show, he should.
Thank you ever so much. I think it's very swell of you to say that, and I hope you find a fella pretty soon. I think you're running out of marriage license, aren't you, baby? Do I remember you? Your name is Jack somebody. You have a very nice voice. It's too bad it's a Mel Torme's throat.
Jack, I think this is the greatest monologue I've ever heard you do.
I think so, too. Thank you very much. It's always nice to say goodbye to you, too, sir. Thank you. Now, Jose Mellis will do a series of Cuban love calls. Jose, are you going to play something, Jose?
Jack will be out in about 5.5 minutes. I would like to read you excerpts from an article by Abel Green in Variety. You know, that's the show business Bible. This is Weekly Variety, and it's comments on the departure of Jack from this late-night time period. He calls it the end of an era, memorable footnote to TV history. And he writes, a show business phenomenon, easily the most vivid personality in TV since Milton Berle became Mr. Television. Jack Paar finales a 5-year marathon on NBC tomorrow, Thursday midnight. That's tonight. It is presumed he will hit a peak lookership and a witching hour time slot from the faithful and the curious. Not since America used to set its 7 p.m. time by Amos and Andy in the heyday of radio has a popular entertainer changed the habits of a nation. In this case, Paar has disturbed the normal retiring habits of a nation. He probably influenced more set sales for that auxiliary receiver in the bedroom, as did Berle when he first gave impetus to the medium. Paar is a showbiz phenomenon also in that he retires at his peak. Not for good, since he'll do a once-weekly hour show in a somewhat earlier time slot over NBC TV, and he's quitting of his own volition. For the network, he has been an electronic Fort Knox with an annual billing between $10 million and $15 million. For show business, Paar has created more stars than Major Bowes in his era. For stars, he has showcased more personalities in their relaxed and close-up perspectives than many mammoth all-star benefits combined. For humor, he has projected himself as a wit of stature. Stars and newcomers, as well as politicos and pundits, know the potency of a Jack Paar exposure. Somehow new fame and acclaim came to most after a Paar guest shot. This made the 320 after minimum scale academic and more of a badge of professional distinction. Kennedy and Nixon, Javits and Goldwater have vied with showbiz greats for the Paar spotlight. Benny, Burns, Groucho, Hope, Skelton, Jerry Lewis, Mickey Rooney, Debbie Reynolds have paraded by his days. Only last week, Paar told Hope that he's had practically everybody on this show but Bing Crosby. The audience identification for both newcomers and seasoned personalities following a Paar guest shot is undeniable. Above it all, Jack Paar remains a towering personality. How his unquestionably continuing stature will transmute itself within the pattern of a less al fresco and a more formalized hour TV show next fall is for the future. One thing is certain. He'll be no secret to the public when he returns. He'll return here. About a minute and a half. A word from your local station now, and we'll be right back. Now from New York, it's the Jack Paar Show with Robert Merrill, Buddy Hackett, Alexander King, Jose Mellis and his orchestra, and yours truly, Hugh Dowd. And now, here's Jack.
I guess it got out that I'm leaving. I'm very touched by that. Don't start so early. I hope to go 6 or 7 minutes, before I got hysterical. But it's a weakness, I have. Hell, I cry when I take the Coca-Cola bottles back to the A&P. I sobbed when I left Guadalcanal. So you see, it's a weakness. Okay. Now we'll just talk, huh? I don't know really what to say. There's not been much talk about who's going to replace Johnny Carson at ABC. Would be funny if it was me. Well, it's nice to see you here and to look out there and see so many friendly faces. Kids have been on the show. Peggy and I see Sam, Selma. There's Dorothy Kilgallen up there. Take the mask off, Dottie. We knew all the time. Say, I hear she's going to go to India. Where would she get an idea like that? What would she do in India unless she wants to fight a mongoose? I really don't understand. I've taken care of about everybody that I wanted to in the last years, and the reason I really want to leave is I might get carried away and turn on myself. No, I think in the interests of world peace, I shall go to Geneva and turn myself in. Lay my tongue on the table and say, this is my contribution to it. As I look at you tonight, I'm thinking that this is how it will probably could look at my own funeral. In a sense, I suppose. I'd see Hermione with a tear in her eye. Shelley Berman would have a handkerchief in one hand and holding up his album in the other. Max Asif would send flowers with the side order of coleslaw. Well, I had a lot of things to say, and it's funny, you just freeze when you get out here. But I want you to know how much I appreciate your coming this evening and making this pleasant. I had a lot of things to say, but isn't it funny how you just come out and then they all go? Well, that's how it is.
Eric, let me say something you might not be aware of, because you might think that before the program came on that I said something to this audience about it. You finally got the standing ovation. I said nothing about it. I had no idea in my mind. It may have been spontaneously, but
Were they standing?
everyone stood. Did you think that you were standing in a hole?
And at my funeral, before they close the lid, he'll tell me where to put my arms. Sure. I know he will. Open that curtain. I want to show you $60 million worth of merchandise that we've sold on this show. I'll show you some of the stuff. These are just some of the sponsors of this show. Good evening, fellow Stiller. I'm glad to see you here. And old Jose's Real Lemon, and you remember the...
Oh, Chuck.
People don't really realize how dangerous these things really can be. All of these things we sold. I think it's 24,000 hours of programming. Yeah. You should say that again and call it ad-libbing out there. But shall we sell something and then
I'll do that? Yeah.
I'll start my nothingness, okay? Little Dottie Kennedy, who's some 68 years old, 64 years old, and is our wardrobe miss, said the nicest thing tonight. She said, "You're the best Jack Paar we ever had." Not everyone is sorry to see me go. The NBC legal department's having a luau tomorrow. Yeah, they're going to roast a pig on the mezzanine with old legal documents. Let me say this slowly and clearly, so that no matter what you read, because now that I go, they'll all start. They've been pretty quiet the last 6 months, but they'll start now. I won't be around. But I have never lost any legal action on anything that I have ever said on this show or any television show. I have never had to make a retraction on anything that I myself ever said on this show. Winchell insists that we did. Elsa did say the story about him not voting. Well, it turned out to be untrue, as I told you. He did have a picture of it, and I said, I'll certainly say that. And then I, gave him the knee pretty good in the meantime. I said that not only did he vote, apparently once, because they photographed it, and it was history. But he said some other things that I thought I would talk to you about tonight. He says recently in a column that I had attacked the Damon Runyon Cancer Fund. No, indeed. Never said anything like it. As a matter of fact, said the opposite. It was the one good, decent thing that I was aware that Mr. Winchell had done. I never said anything about the Damon Runyon Cancer Fund. Mr. Winchell backed down. He was going to sue for $3 or $4 million and never sued. What I did say about Walter Winchell was his phony patriotism, that he wrapped himself in the American flag whenever you criticized him, and he wore the American flag like a bathrobe. I never said any such thing about his Damon Runyon Cancer Fund, nor would I. He's to be commended for that. There's a few other things I'll take care of, but first, this happened yesterday. A man called Paul, and Paul wrote this down. He was in Atlantic City. Now, many of the newspapers have not mentioned in some time that this was called The Tonight Show or Paar Show, whatever you want to call it. They have refused to print my name, which just has me all choked up. But the funniest thing, you see, in New York, Hearst papers have it as interviews, which is quite all right. Everyone knows where we are. But in Atlantic City, I have to say it's funny. But they're so angry with me there, they print 11:15 commercials. Well, that's very, very funny. So this fella who called us said that he's from the Middle West, and he called up and he said, I want to know, by what action do you print a thing like this? I know that the Paar Show is on, and all I want to know is which channel it's on in Atlantic City. Why don't you come out and print it? And there was a long pause. He said, I demand to know. It's childish. I want to know. And then the fellow on the phone, the poor guy, had to read this statement. I am authorized to state that Jack Paar is an enemy of the press, and this is the only way we can retaliate. Isn't that marvelous? All right, about the press. First of all, the things that they bring up. Now, there's 5 different articles being written in magazines that are currently on the stands, all of them based on old stories that were untrue in the first place. I have called Newsweek magazine, quietly and softly and slowly, a magazine that prints knowing untruth. Their circulation, they lost circulation on that, I know. Mr. Muir, I think, his wife talked, and somebody at a party said they were going to sue because there've been so many cancellations. I'm sorry about that, Mr. Muir. I'm all choked up again. But I say it again. You print knowing falsehoods. And in the Newsweek, a recent issue, in trying to find something on Paar, and they desperately try, they bring up many things. Always Castro. Always Fidel Castro. Well, you have a right to know about that. I was wrong in many areas about that, but it wasn't knowledge in some smart aleck way that I thought I had. It was a dramatic conditioning and experience I had. This show, in its early years, was sent to Havana. We didn't wish to go. They wanted us to go. It was under the Batista government. I've gone to Cuba many times, and I just adore the Cubans. But I had no interest in politics. So I got into Havana. And Genevieve was with me, and so were about 20 other people, Johnny Lynch and part of the crew, sound men and all. I was given what they call courtesy of the port. That means that you walk through without customs or immigration. It's nothing I ask for or care about. It's just a little courtesy. Genevieve, her passport was not in proper order, being a French citizen. And there was no way to have gotten her into Havana without a lot of trouble. So to make it easy, she grabbed my arm, and the producer, everyone knew, said, this is Mrs. Paar. So she went in, so there'd be no trouble with immigration. Now, the Cuban government, the Batista people, had cars lined up on the street. And we were each to get into certain cars. I'm by myself with no family, with 2 bags. I certainly am not going to ride in the limousine alone. So I said, well, let's go in the first car. The second car doesn't matter. Genevieve and I jumped in the second car, and off we drove as the others followed. I didn't know till I got to the hotel, but I saw the results of what happened. The first driver, who was under orders to have gotten me and put me in the car, had been responsible for me because at that time the Castro people had threatened us that we shouldn't come there. Well, this man's name is Garcia, but then nearly everybody's called Garcia, but a charming, dear guy who now is a good friend of mine. He was pistol whipped by the Batista forces, which our people saw, Johnny saw. They cut this guy's head open, blood coming down. This is what I ended up seeing. And when I found out why, because I got in a wrong car, they're whipping this man, well, that got me kind of interested in what's going on. Is this what they're doing in Cuba? Later, when Jim Bishop and I went to Cuba after Castro had taken over, I am now pro the Castro people. I want to see something decent and honorable there, and I thought it was going to be Castro. Jim, in all fairness to Jim Bishop, he never was enthusiastic about it. He saw something wrong, to his great credit. I went on enthusiastic. It's going to be swell, I think, Jim. Well, we got there. We were both impressed, Jim and I, by the marvelous behavior of the then Barbudos, the young troops that were coming down from the country. They were beautifully mannered at that time. There was no drinking. There was prostitution that had been outlawed. The gambling casinos were closed. In every way, at the beginning of a revolution, and I could have had more experience before I got so closely involved, was there's something wonderful in the beginning. I'm too young to know that revolutions devour itself, and now it's, and for many years, has been killing off the very men who fought to put Castro in power. But I did see things that turned me further. I didn't make this up. I saw not them do it. I saw the results of it by a few days. They put a man's hand in a vise and they tighten it. And this is a minor thing. And the nails are pulled off with pliers. Well, ooh, yeah. Well, I saw the results of a lot of that. And now I'm for this new wonderful thing. But did I act irresponsibly? Did I just go off like a nut and talk to Dr. Castro? No. I had something to show you tonight. I was told that if I showed this on the air, the Catholic Church would be on my back and I'd never get off. That's what they said. I don't believe that. I think the Catholic Church is more willing to admit human error and forgive than any church I know. And as a matter of fact, it's based on forgiveness. But when I was going to show this on the air, when the heat was on me 2-3 years ago, I was warned by people who liked me, executives, Jack, if you do this, you're through. Well, tonight I haven't asked their permission, and I'm going to show you the simplest thing in the world. I went with Jim Bishop, a devout Catholic, and Jim will tell you, Jim wrote this a couple times, but the papers won't print it. They don't want to tell the good side of what happened. I said, Jim, before we see him, if he's a communist or something like that, we'd better check. Who do you check in a revolution? So Jim says, the bishop. The Catholic Church is not known for its naivete in such matters as communism. So Jim went off with a cameraman and saw this charming, sweet bishop. His name was Bishop Muller. And I wanted to show this to you 3 years ago. These are my credentials. This is where I checked before I then later saw Castro. Please roll that.
This is His Excellency, Monsignor Muller, Auxiliary Bishop of Havana. Your Excellency, can you tell me if the new government is communist?
No, the new government no is communist. It's very democratic.
You know these men?
Yes, I know. Yes. And the Minister of War is daughter of the priest Valentin Fernandez.
Oh, I see.
Yes, yes, you know.
And they are democratic and not communist?
No.
Is there much communism in Cuba?
No, very little. Very little.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Newsweek magazine says that the reason that I was so interested in Castro was that my vanity and that he was so nice to my family that my family never met or saw Dr. Castro and had no interest in seeing him. Dorothy Kilgallen reported that I consorted with communists at the pool at the Havana Hilton in Havana. This is what she wrote, and this is where I really turned on this. And Billy Graham's picture came before me all of a sudden. She can go to heaven. And she wrote in her column that Jack Paar consorted with his family. Well, you know what it was? It was 6 months later. I was there with our anniversary. I was there with the Reddys, John and Nora Reddy, and my wife. And it was our wedding anniversary. We had a cake around at the pool, and in the afternoon, and some kids were swimming. There weren't many people there then. And a little boy joined my daughter, and I was throwing quarters into diver nickels. And the little boy, I learned, was Fidel Castro's son. He was 9 years old, had just recovered from having a lung partially removed. 9 years old, get this. He had been hurt seriously on a motorcycle. Now, he doesn't live with his father, and they're estranged, they're divorced. And the little boy's a charming kid. And he lives with his mother, and I think she's married to somebody else there. Incidentally, the network didn't cut me. They didn't do that. Don't start that. I don't think that they did. The commercials must come. I mean, honor thy father and thy mother, but the commercials, they are everything. Lock in there, boy. And listen, I'm a pro. I should know I couldn't have gone on beyond that. Where was I? The little boy. So he had this lung removed, partition of his lung, and he was just some days out of the hospital, or weeks, and he was diving for nickels. And he came to me, and in his broken English, he said, Senor, he was ashamed that Randy, a girl, was beating him. And he said, don't throw it in such deep water. He told me about it. That's how I learned about it. He said, I can't stand the pressure. Go down to the 4-foot end. So I did. That is my extent of being with the communists in Cuba. I don't know what they'll print next. They'll have me playing gin rummy with Eichmann or something, you know. Now, here's something else about this Newsweek. It says, now, this sounds like a nice thing, doesn't it? Paar even had a legitimate personal brief stemming from his unjust manhandling by the press last year when he taped a couple of innocuous shows at the Berlin border. By this time, however, he had screamed foul so often, so loudly, and for such trivial or vainglorious reasons that no one paid much attention to him. See, now, they say that I was manhandled, that I was treated badly, unjust, they say. Who do you think the leader of that group was? There were 2 or 3. Newsweek was one. No one lied more about it than Newsweek. Billy Graham here the other night said about something had happened to him, but Billy has too much class. He wouldn't mention the magazine. Then when he was down in where was it? Maracaibo, Venezuela, and some men came in and were shot while he was speaking to the legislature. He was reported to have jumped under a table, Billy Graham, and said, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. He never said any such thing. He just said, Lord, get me out of here, and he took off, you see. Like any sensible Christian would do, you see. Get out of there, boy. It was Newsweek that rigged that story. Newsweek has done this time and time and time again, and if they wish to go to court, boy, am I ready. Now, next. Oh, you know, if somebody told you a thing like, see, when I say Americans, I mean all of us. But when I say America in some areas, I mean people who use us. They're Americans, businesses and things that have badly represented us in South America. Cuba, for instance. If I told you that if we're so concerned about Fidel Castro in Cuba, and I believe we should be, we should have been concerned before. But how could we be concerned before? When interests down there were taking the money from those people, when, more than that, a correspondent for one of the big wire services was in the personal payroll of Batista, an American sending you news was under the personal payroll of Batista. But if I had said to you that we are responsible for what happened, well, I wouldn't have said that. But I kind of feel it. In the way that we should have been concerned before what was going on. But by luck today, this is this morning's New York Herald Tribune. A good newspaper, I think. And on the second page, Ike's brother blames U.S. for Batista and Castro. If I had said that a year ago, 2 years ago, I'd been in big trouble. But Ike's brother, an honorable man, said that. That happens to be his opinion. Now, what else do you want? What else do you want to talk about?
I just sit here and run off at the mouth.
I know you do. You always did do that, you. Let's go back to Winchell. What do you want to hear about it? All right. Well, you see, television has grown up these 5 years. Even my enemies say that I had some small part in it. We should fight and stand up and act like honorable people. The things that were committed here in the quiz shows, and Hugh and I were on then, we deplored it. We were shocked. We knew about some of that, not a lot, but there were rumors in the rooms where men have rumors that this kind of thing was going on. But we're happy that the government and the newspapers exposed it. We were ashamed. I think that they took Mr. Van Dorn and went too far. I myself do. I mean, what do you want to do? Ruin a man's life forever? He lost his job at NBC. He lost his scholarship. He lost his teaching. He lost his... I mean, how much do you want, before you say enough? 95% of us would have probably done the same damn thing that he did. I think you would have. But anyhow, Winchell and people like him. Kilgallen, okay, they can put her on with a mask, but I mean, they're not really going to let her read her nonsense and her news on television. Walter Winchell came back on the air 3 years ago with a news program. I was shocked that he'd let him back. This nuts with this news. And so you know what happened? He lasted 2 shows. The lowest rating of any new show that year. It's in Variety, it's documented. Because the public is now wise. First, in radio, we used to think that this nut, you remember, he used to have a ticker. We said, well, news is coming in or going out from somebody, see? Well, you look at television and here's that nut playing with his own ticker. Now, that's the silliest thing I ever saw, right away. You know there's something there. And Walter Winchell today is about as influential as a barber in Havana. That's about how much influence he's got. The Saturday Review of Literature, in a thing that has been suppressed in a free country, and certainly it hasn't been publicized in a free country, and boy, is it really news, I think. This information, I'm quoting now the Saturday Review. This information, which nearly all of the free American press apparently did not think worth printing, is contained in a study recently released by the opinion research firm of Elmo, Roper and Associates. These results confirm the suspicions and anxieties of a few far-sighted newspaper executives that the image of American newspapers is slipping as far as the public is concerned, and that the era of cheerful statements and dignified poo-pooing is just about over. The newspaper business has been fighting television for the advertising dollar. But the real damage is contained in the answers to this question. If you got conflicting or different reports of the same news story from radio, television, the magazines, and the newspapers, which of the 4 versions would you be most inclined to believe? The one on radio or television, magazines, or newspapers? A total of 39% in the 1961 survey called television most believable, a jump of 10 percentage points in 2 years, while newspapers at 24% had dropped from 32% in that period. Even more damaging are the answers to a related question. Which of the 4 versions would you be least inclined to believe? The one on radio, television, magazines, or newspapers? Here, 28% of those surveyed called newspapers the least believable. Magazines were next with 25%. It's quite an important little document. Something else. I'll do one more thing. A lot of people about Fidel Castro hoped something better would happen. Do you know who brought Fidel Castro? And mind you, I'm aware that legally I'm responsible for everything I say, as I always have been. Do you know who brought Fidel Castro to this country the first time? Newspaper Association. Do you know who was responsible for bringing him here? Don Maxwell of the Chicago Tribune. Do you know how I know? They called me to lunch and dinner and told me they were bringing him here. It was a big thing, and maybe I would do something with him. Don Maxwell, Chicago Tribune. They're the ones, through a correspondent there called Jules Dubois. Nice man who was very close to Castro in the old days. And when I first went there, if you want to see Castro, you had to see Dubois. He was the guy that knew Fidel. Well, when I first met him, I said, could I get to see Fidel and we'll think for the television and bring it back to Tonight Show? And he, in an offhanded way, brushed me off. That's Dubois. 6 months later, he fell out with Fidel, or 3 months later, whatever it was. They had a fight. And poor Dubois, I saw him in the lobby of the same Hilton, and I felt sorry for him. You know what? The Waiters Union refused to serve him food anywhere in Cuba. And the poor guy was going around days getting cracker crumbs and everything. And I thought it was disgraceful, We got to feed this boy. Anyhow, even though he hated Castro at that time, he came on the show and plugged his whoop against Castro. He did it here openly and freely, as others have done who disagreed. And then later, when I was asked by members of our government, I don't make these things up, would I take the brunt and head the thing to get the Tractors for Freedom? This was a cause that then in the polls was 65 to 70%, an unpopular point of view. And I did it because I had already sent my own money, a substantial amount of money to me, to them, to help those boys. There's two of my friends are in that group down there. They were the most pro-Castro guys in the world, fought with him. Now they're in prison. Some of them are dying of hepatitis down there. And now, but I headed the thing, even though, I headed raising the money. I'm the one that got a couple $100,000 and could have got millions up to a certain point if they would have let me alone. But now the Cubans themselves, and more properly so, are starting a campaign to get those guys out. And if it is in your heart to want to see these young patriots brought back to America and to their loved mothers and fathers, they wanted me to start it again, and I'm just too tired to do it again. But I do want to say at least that. It is being started again, and as I gave you my word in the old days, I knew it would become tax deductible, as I told you. Well, that didn't, because the whole thing, but your money was returned. The government has now declared that this is a tax deductible thing. I'm glad you were so patient with me.
If I can... I had, there's a little thing here you don't know about, Jack, but I want to introduce it. And if I may, by way of a minute of my own here, to do my own commercial, it's at $12,000 a minute, I know. And so I can, if I can have the minute just to say something before I go in, either that or the $12,000 cash. I just wanted to say this before you see what you're going to see. Jack, as you know, is leaving the series tonight. This is not...
That's definite, then.
That's pretty definite. You heard the word.
Why they let me go, I'll never know.
This is not the end of the world or the end of television. Television is in its, still in its beginning. But I think that Jack Paar has done more to help television toward a proper beginning in the things that he's done on this program. I'm talking about the way it averages out than any other single personality on the air. Through this miasmic panorama that's been called the Jack Paar Show, the viewing audience has been subjected, I just totaled this up, to 26,363 commercial messages. This has, among other things, it has seen some misunderstanding, some of what has been called peevishness, some unexpected raw emotion, because the show has been made up of human beings, and because the person in charge of it is a human being, and that's the thing that's ultimately most interesting, is human beings. It has also seen incidents of righteous indignation, of humor, of wisdom, irascible forthrightness, and a penetrating truth that has as its goal not the desire to please, but the necessity to express and the willingness to level. And unless I miss my guess, this fall, a big dose of these interesting elements will be brought to prime time on Jack's new series. I'm going to be watching, along with millions of viewers and dozens of nervous clients and attorneys. That's what I have to say. That's all right.
Oh, matter of fact, I hope it goes well. I do the best I can.
I think it should. That's something some of the newspapers have, even in complimenting you on the series, have missed in assuming that when you go to prime time that you will automatically fall into a sterile cliche form of program. I would be very surprised.
I'm hysterical because I saw that papers today around the country, and you know what? They've already written the reviews for the first show in September. It's absolutely hysterical.
That's good. That's good. Right now, because so many of your friends are here in person, you've seen them, but there are many who could not attend, and as a result, we got from a lot of them messages on film and tape. And if we could roll that right now for you to see, Jack, and for everyone out there.
Yeah?
Well, Jack, the 5 years since I first met you, a lot has happened to me, and a great deal of it is because of my appearances on your show. I'd like to wish you good luck for your future. Perhaps an appropriate saying is right for this moment. The king is dead, long live the king. It's the same one. So long, Jack.
I'm delighted to have the opportunity to appear for the third time on the Jack Paar Show. And I can only say that I'm sure I expressed the sentiments of millions across the country in expressing regret that this is the last of this series for Jack Paar. But we're all very happy that he's going to be back in the fall on Friday nights with a new show. And until then, I'm sure lots of people that have stayed up very late at night
will get a few hours more sleep because Jack Paar is no longer on the air. I only know that we all join in wishing him well in this intervening period, and we'll be looking forward to more sparkling entertainment when Jack comes back.
That's right. You didn't listen. You did it, huh? Well, we're all going to miss you. You're a great wit, a great personality, a great entertainer, and an outstanding showman because you're the only one who let me sing. I don't know where you're going, but I'm going with you. And until you get there, this is for you. From time to time in every clime blessing, you keep the 320. From time to time in every clime blessings come from above.
I only wish that, to you, Jack, I wish that your pursuits in the future will bring you the excitement, the happiness, and the fulfillment that you have brought to so many of us during your years and hours on television. And when you marshal your forces in the fall, you press the button and I'll come a-strutting. I have some unused jokes, a few new steps. So you crack the whip and I'll make the trip.
Jack, I was so hoping to be with you this evening, but you know you've never sent this down. But I would like to say that I love being on your program. You have the great gift of making all your guests feel like $1 million, even if you only pay some of us that much.
Now, wait a few other people in this business have been able to do this. Jack has gotten through to the man on the street on a number of issues that would have bored them silly if the experts had tried to do the same thing. Jack's uncommon knack of putting a humorous twist on some of the important issues of the day has given the man on the street an understanding of these problems vital in our time. He leaves a real gap it isn't going to be easy to fill.
And of course, you're not retiring. You're coming back next season in your own program in prime time. And for that show, I wish you all the luck in the world. I sincerely hope that you have a great, big rating. I hope that you're a tremendous success in that show, as long as it doesn't go on opposite my show.
My saber is bent, if I remember correctly. Your saber, I don't think your saber is bent. If it is bent at all, it is certainly not nearly so bent as the false idols your saber has been flashing at. Everybody in our profession is almighty proud of belonging to the same profession as you do.
Hi, Jack. I just want to add a few words to your electronic wake. I want to tell you that this is really a sad night for NBC. Even the peacock came dressed in black. Everybody's upset. General Sarno's so upset he's home watching Channel 2. Tomorrow night, for the first time, 11 million people are going to find out who they're married to.
Good luck, Jack. Son of a gun.
Jack, it's always been a pleasure to be on your program. I've appreciated the years of personal friendship that we have had. I hope you have a wonderful vacation. Nobody deserves it any more than you do. And don't forget to go to church every Sunday.
Au revoir, darling. And my love to you, Miriam, and Randy. I hope you'll be very happy. God bless you.
Jack, as a member of the engineering crew, it's been a pleasure doing the show with you for 4.5 years. And there's some things I remember in those 4.5 years that a lot of the columnists don't remember. I remember one night when you paid, we had a painter on the show, and I think you got him something like $10 out of your own pocket so he could buy food, I believe. And another thing I remember is when Little Dottie, our wardrobe girl, had a little financial difficulties, and she got a camera appearance. And also an engineer who came to you and said that his wife had been pretty tired from sickness she had home, family illness and everything. And you saw that that engineer got a camera appearance. Now, another thing, what is Jack Paar really like? Well, I've been in this business about 22 years, working with Bob Hope, Milton Berle, Dorothy, and many others. But I've only told this to one of these entertainers, Jack. Jack, your heart is bigger than your bag of tricks. Thank you very much.
very happy to be appearing on your farewell show tonight to tell you how much I've always enjoyed your program and the way you've handled celebrities who have appeared with you. You know, your shows have not only been entertaining, but also very educational. Everything I know about Russia and sex, I've learned from you.
Jack Paar has given a great deal of pleasure to many people over a long period of time. I don't think that there's been any program in the history of television that has been as difficult as his, without any kind of a script, yet going on every evening, entertaining people and giving many millions of people tremendous amounts of pleasure. He's also given a lot of actors and entertainers a new opportunity in life. So I think that all of us have a great obligation to him. I first appeared on the show in 1957. I was counsel then of the Rackets Committee, and we were making efforts to obtain the passage of some legislation. After we talked about the legislation, Congress received tremendous amounts of mail, almost more than on any other issue during that period of time. I went on at one time after I wrote a book about the work of the committee, and the book immediately went to the top of the bestseller list. During the time that President Kennedy, then a senator, was running for presidency, we were in the West Virginia primary. I came up from West Virginia, went on the show with Jack Paar. I came back to West Virginia, visited some coal mines the next day, and every coal miner, it seems, had watched the show. So we had a tremendous amount of influence. They gave many, many people tremendous amounts of pleasure. So I am grateful to him for all of his kindnesses to me personally, to my wife, and in fact to all of the Kennedys. He's been very gracious to us, and we shall all miss him. Of course, it means that all of us, not only our family, but many other millions of Americans, will now have an opportunity to get a full night's sleep. But we will miss him.
Hi, Jack. I'm a king. I feel so funny, so strange to be all by myself alone in front of a camera, saying goodbye to you. No matter what I say, every word will sound terribly sentimental. After all, we are together the second day of the show. And I'm so far away today, the very last day of the show. Now, 5 years later, if I have the luck to be all by myself on the road, did you put me there? How not to sound sentimental? And also you are not with me right now to pick on my accent. But at least with it, I can speak loudly about the people, the thousands of people I have met on the road. All those who love you, the Jack Paar habit people. Now, the Jack Paar show habit has to finish. America will go back to bed early. But the Jack Paar habit has not finished. The long affair of love between them and you, and me and my big fat king, that will never finish. And like they say in England, the king is dead, long live the king. Goodbye, Jack.
I think that says it. Shall we go into Snowy Bleach here, or try to salvage one of them? We blew a whole commercial there. And that,
Oh, that's just too damn bad.
Robert Merrill and I first met in Washington when Bob and I were sent down there to entertain President Eisenhower one night. I made a little speech, and Bob sang, and President Eisenhower is a great pal of Bob's. And he's here tonight on this, our last show, sing something quite special. Here is Mr. Robert Merrill. How nice of you. I love Madam Butterfly, you know. They love it when I say dumb things. It makes them feel good, you know.
Well, you don't really say nothing.
Well, no, I like to say the opposite, but then they all laugh.
Jack, I want to tell the people tonight. Well, not that I'm...
Don't attack anybody. We don't allow that.
Not that I'm thrilled, only being thrilled being on your last show, and that you asked me to be on your last show. I'm a little sad that you're leaving. But I want to tell the people that for the past few years that I've been on the show, and when I knew I was on, the date, so when I asked your people, I said, what should I sing, what number? And I said, well, there's Jack, and you always pick the show tune. You were afraid of opera. I told the audience you didn't know opera because you never went to the opera. And tonight, when I called and said, asked what number should I sing, and they asked you, and you wanted an operatic aria, Pagliacci. So I'm thrilled that finally we've made an opera lover out of you for 4 years.
No, I love that aria, and I know a little bit, but I don't pretend to know more than I know, which is small. But how does that opera end, you know?
That's it. It's the last words of Pagliacci, from the tenor, Canio, after this tragic opera ends. He steps before the audience and he says, La commedia è finita. The comedy is finished.
Yeah, that's good, isn't it?
I know you're
my wife saved her money, you know.
No, I'm sure your comedy's not finished because Friday night, starting October, we're going to have a great deal of laughs.
I hope so. At making it up as you go along, at winging it, as we say, there's no one faster, funnier. Few comedians can converse, incidentally. I'll leave you with this. Very few comedians can converse in a whole sentence. That's the truth, without doing an ordinary joke. But Buddy Hackett's one of the greatest. Buddy Hackett. That's a plug for Julie, I know.
Something to Chicago. I don't know what place Chicago. Listen, Jack. How does it feel to be out of work?
Well, I am sorry about
you
it.
feel like now you're thinking about vacation and taking it easy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice, right?
Yeah.
Wait till Tuesday. You've been off for a while. Why do you keep looking around and say, what am I going to do tonight now? I'll put something on. I'll look. There's a guy on. He's doing my spot. What is that? I want my job back, and you'll see. You'll really sob then.
You're not so sad, I see that.
Why should I be sad? I had Johnny Carson over the house for cocktails.
no use for you. I think all them guys got on that picture and told you on film, oh, we're so sorry. They know that their enemies are Carson, that's all. I can hear on the good side of them, that's all. You know where your bread is buttered and you watch yourself. Them 320s,
Your bread has sure been buttered, hasn't it, kid?
What a scream you just got with that one, big guy.
See how they get mean when they drink. You see that?
I was not drinking. I just take them pills, that's all. I got a new kind.
Yeah.
You take them and you swell up.
What's the point of that?
This way you don't eat nothing. It's swelling up pills.
Well, old friend, you're a real funny man. One of the funniest. Maybe the funniest. At just winging it. I don't know anybody who puts it on.
Well, you know, of course, this is a big bravado I'm putting a facade on now because I don't want to cry neither.
I don't feel he's near crying. Do you, Hugh?
I cry sometimes.
Let's bring out Alex King.
Okay.
Alex King, ladies and gentlemen, one of my dearest friends.
Well,
here we are, old friend. How many shows have been?
129.
Is that what it's been?
Tonight.
Oh, boy.
And, but you know, it's a kind of a new experience for me because I've worked for big corporations like Life and Time. And when somebody's on the skids, the first thing you notice, they don't call, for instance, they don't call you Alex anymore. They suddenly start calling you King. A little while later, they call you Mr. King. And when you go to the men's room, they don't greet you. This means you're on the skids. But for anybody to quit at the top of the pile, it's something so sugar, you know. I can't get, but you quit twice on top of the pile. It always seems to happen in Lent, you notice that 2 years ago. Right. 2 years ago in Lent. He goes to Hong Kong. He goes to Hong Kong again. That's some kind of condition, obviously.
Alex,
he is alive.
He gives up careers for Lent.
I don't mind him giving up his, but he's giving up mine, too.
You're launched. You've got nothing to worry. You launch all of us. Nothing to worry about. You know the things that stand out in my mind on these shows for these last few years? What? When Mimi Hines sang here, There Are Bells. When, for instance, these characters came on, like Bobby, whom I've always known to be a comedian of a certain, and suddenly has a third dimension as a human.
Bobby, you're funny, but you're not well known. That's a
came on as a third-dimensional human being, you know. That's true, you know, because you established yourself as a person.
You're funny. You're talking in the routine.
And that's absolutely. Well, you
want to
can. No, don't. And Joey Bishop and all these people. Of course, some things were not so favorable and pleasant, like when suddenly poetry was recited here, you know, on friendship all of a sudden out of the clear sky. Remember? And
you can't stand poetry from Jekyll, can you?
No, because I think it is written by one of his friends, you see. And he doesn't plug anybody, but when he says...
Nick Kenny's writing for him?
When he says friendship, I develop an enormous animosity against him. You see. That's the exact opposite effect. But I must say, as long as this is my last opportunity, I've had in the last 3 years 40,000 letters from viewers. And many of them, I'm telling you the truth, I have read. And what is fantastic about these letters, it has verified something in my mind. Many women write to me that they wish that their husbands knew me because they're so much like me. Now, years ago, when there wasn't so much fast transportation and I worked on Life, I used to go on boats to South America or to the Caribbean. And every once in a while, I'd run into some little loose woman there who'd start talking to me on the boat, and she would be charmed or beguiled. I'd cover her with my amiability like a slime. And sooner or later, she would say, "You've got to meet my husband. He's just like you." And then around lunchtime or cocktail time, out she would trot a man with one eyebrow across his forehead, with his hands hanging down to the ground. He would give me a moist palm, and every once in a while a kind of shiver would run through him, you know, a kind of a spasm. And this, in his circles, this passed for laughter. And I said to myself, how is it possible that this woman thinks this man is like me? And then I realized, and of course I want to be fair, I've known many men who said to me, you've got to meet the little woman. And then a weekend would come, and I would go to his house, and there would stand some kind of a swollen gland. You know, with kind of a bleached Brillo top. And he would look at me to say, well, you know, this is the ultimate. And then, of course, if there was a swimming pool near, he would also want her to swim, so I can see all her goodies, you see, in their complete harmony. And you know what else he would say to me later when she was finally disrobed? He'd say, whom does she remind you of? I didn't want to tell him. She reminded me of an inflamed cow's udder. And then I realized that all these people, very luckily, are the subjects of the goodness of God. He gives them this divine blindness. A woman is stuck with some kind of a stammering moron. But in her eyes, you see, he becomes somebody very glib and very subtle, with a very fine brain. A man is stuck with some kind of a horrible pot, you know. And almost anybody looks good at 18, and he married her then, but now she's 27, you know, everything has gone wrong. And even artifice can no longer help out, you see. But he still has that primary image, because we can't all marry Gina Lola Brigidel now, let's face it, you know. So some arrangement has to be made so we can put up with our partners. And this goodness of God prevails. And so I want you to know, I'm so happy I never met all these husbands, these wives say I am a great deal liked. You see, this is one of my great delights and joys.
Can I sell something here?
Why, certainly.
Well, buddy, I'll see you in Japan in about 2 weeks, huh?
Yeah.
I'll meet you there.
I wish you would come over to the house sometime and have some... I mean, you've got plenty of time now, right?
Yeah. Well, this summer we'll get... Well, we're going to be together for weeks.
Yeah, in Japan.
You always have parties. And, buddy, I'm a good friend of yours. I think you think I am.
Yeah.
And I'm not a party guy.
But this Saturday...
6 people I like. You know, 4 and talk. That I enjoy. But he starts a party at 120. That, to me, you know, that's a carnival, not a party.
Well, some people, they like to cover the floor with carpet, and I like bodies. I got 2 of my friends. You know, I tell you about my Chinese family in San Francisco.
Yeah, we're going to see them.
What do you mean you're going to see them? They're here. They're here tonight in the studio.
Well, somebody in Hong Kong you want to see.
Yes, well, that's our grandfather. But Willie and Wilson Sang, they came to stay with me now. And they were cooking today with my wife. They were going to cook Chinese meal, and we have a kosher home. Now, listen, you enjoy this, Alex. I know you're a gourmet. You'll have a kosher home. And the boys, you know, that my wife went with the 2 boys to Chinatown to buy Chinese vegetables to cook. Then she took them to a kosher butcher to get substitute meat for the pork, see? So my brother Willie, he took a look at some veal. He said, okay, that'll be good pork. He said to the veal in the butcher store. And the man in the kosher butcher store said, what's he saying? He said to my wife. She said, it's nothing. He ain't going to do nothing. He kept calling the veal. It looks like good pork, you know. And they cooked lunch in the house today. It was terrific. Best Chinese food I ever had.
I love Chinese food.
Well, then come Saturday, Willie and Wilson are cooking they got a place in San Francisco called the Rickshaw. It's a bar, and they don't charge for the food. The food is free. You pay for the booze and you eat all you want. And they cook all day long. Terrific. They're great guys. Just sitting up there someplace.
Hugh, I haven't talked to you much tonight. I just want to tell you that, you know, how much you've contributed to the show. They said, strangely enough, many columnists printed, I recall in Chicago, I forget the guy's name, Alan, well, whatever his name is, they're all the same to me, that you were leaving the show on time after time, and he had it on inside, you were walking off at any moment, you know, that was, well, about a year ago, 6 months ago. And the funny thing is, you're the only one to stay in. Because Jose's going to go, and I'm going to go, and the producer, the writers. I have so many people to thank you. You have given the show class and a quieter note. And Hugh, honestly, you said some funny and sly things over 5 years. You truly have.
Well, as I said before, Jack, the net effect really is I sit here somewhat like a bump on a log, and the spotlight that you created slops over on me and has raised my price about 5 times.
You're the best tonto I ever had.
I'm going to miss you, Lowell.
And the boys in the band, we had to weed out a few that drank. But the older men who lasted, who passed the semifinals and could hold it, the liquor, I mean, you've been swell guys, really. And Bobby, and let us not forget one of the dearest men that ever was on any stage. I'm not one to say things I don't believe. Jose Mellis. And all the guys in the control room, Hal Gurney, the director, a fine one he is. Paul Orr, our producer, who's taken a beating. Not so much from me, but from everyone else, it seems, for some time. Been a great, wonderful friend, and will be with me on the new show. My writers, first of all, Paul Key's been on the show since the first night, 5 years. His ideas have contributed greatly to the show. And Bob Howard, I hope you'll both be down on the new show with me. It's a matter of your agent. And Frankie, the sound, and Mike over there. I mentioned Bobby Bugg. I should have not started this mentioning names. I'm going to leave some out, Perry Massey and Sheila Riley. And my own Mitzi, the girl who has done as much for me as any person that ever lived. I'd like you just to see Mitzi because she's a beauty. Mitzi, honey, stand up, darling. Stand up, please. Stand up. She's kept a lot of nuts away, and as a matter of fact, she accepts all the summons for me. That's from 3 to 4, we accept summons here, and Mitzi's done a wonderful job. And all of the talent that has been on the show, all of the great big ones, and all of the ones that were coming up,
Jack, can I mention something about this Mitzi?
The light in here is murder, I'll tell you.
Every night, every weeknight, for almost 5 years, Mitzi McTravers has handed me 2 pieces of paper. And that's the thing I say at the opening now from New York at the Jack Paar show. Self is tonight's guest. And the other piece of paper says, tomorrow night, Jack's guest will be. Tonight, she gave me 1 piece of paper, and it feels so thin.
La commedia finito.
I think it's time now.
I want to tell you something. I have told so many stories on the air over the past 4 years, and many people disbelieved them. And one of those disbelief particularly was one when I said that I went to photograph a nudist wedding and told my misadventures during this thing. As a matter of fact, remember I said that I got in. We also had to be undressed, my cameraman and I. They wouldn't let us in otherwise, but I bought a guitar. And Jack very waspishly said, you could have bought a banjo. You know, I mean... and nobody believes the story, of course. But one of my dear correspondents has mailed me a photograph of a nudist wedding. It was printed in Life magazine, in Time magazine, rather.
Is this how we're going to go on?
Can you come down on it? Yeah.
Sure, there's a lot of cold cuts there.
All right. You got it?
Yeah.
He's not showing it. There it is. I just want you to know that the minister who performed the ceremony, who discreetly has his back turned to the camera, was wearing a reverse collar. So it was really quite respectable. But
Listen,
anyway.
excuse me. Before I go, and only have a moment, I just want to tip over one more outhouse. On March 16th, this was written in a small syndication by a television writer, Hal Humphrey, who was a very good writer, so good that his paper just folded. But he did write this on the 16th, mind you, of this month. I still insist that Jack isn't going to quit his nocturnal throne. They say that all of the mail and other comments stirred by his resignation has enlarged the Paar ego to such a point where it would take a derrick of a herd of elephants to remove him from the premises at NBC. Nobody knows what Jack Paar himself is thinking about these days. He doesn't confide in the press. On the show, however, there are times when he seems almost on the verge of shouting, "I'm going to stay. You've done it. You've convinced me. I love you, and I'm going to stay." So there. That's what Mr. Humphreys wrote. And now, with that, I bid you